Inventions can change the world. But in order to have inventions, we need inventors. And the question is, how do we groom people who want to invent, who want to have real impact? Now, my work as an inventor involves developing global health technologies, technologies that can assist healthcare givers to provide the best quality of care in the world's poorest settings. Some of these technologies right now are actually concepts or ideas that are being evaluated in the lab, and others of them are commercialized products that have had demonstrated impact on neonatal survival. I've spent a lot of time thinking about how to encourage other people to follow their passion so that they can invent things and have real impact. I am really lucky because I work at a university where every year a new crop of college freshmen come to our site, to our university. Maybe you remember when you first went to college. These students are full of energy and enthusiasm and creativity. They want to change the world. I remember that time. It was not too long ago. And for me, when I was in those shoes, I wanted to save the world, change the world, solve problems I saw around me. And I want that for my students. I ask the students, why do you want to be an engineer? And so far, no one has said to me, so I can get a good job. Honestly, what they tell me is that they are passionate. They are passionate about solving problems, such as challenges in energy, sustainability, robotics, clean water, food security, medicine, the environment, space, transportation. And some of the students share my passion for global health. How do we harness this passion? When these students get to their first technical class, this is what greets them. Formula after formula after formula, big, thick technical books, problem sets, problem after problem after problem. And you know when you're a student in that class that the group last year did the same problems and the group the year before did the same problems and the group the year before did the same problems. And at the same time, we need the students to learn their technical skills. We need them to understand these formulas. We need them to do problem sets. But 4 to 5 technical classes a semester, 2 semesters a year, 4 years, that's a very long tunnel with a tiny light at the end of it before they get to do what they tell me they want to do, solve real problems. I have been really fortunate in my global health work to visit the wonderful country. I'll back up here. I'm going to talk about what happened to me when I went to Rice. I started at Rice in 2004, and I was given an assignment. This assignment was to teach the bioengineering capstone design course. This course, at the time, was known as a necessary evil in order for our department to get accreditation. How sad was that? The students did a tremendous amount of work on an on-paper design project that ended up on the shelf. The students hated it and the faculty hated it. But I thought back to my senior design experience. I did get to build a physical prototype and work on an open-ended problem. But it was a pretend problem. There wasn't a real client. And I felt real personal satisfaction in building a physical prototype that I could demonstrate worked. And I put so much work into it, and it was wonderful. And at the same time, it didn't feel like a huge accomplishment because it also sat on the shelf. So I have spent some time in Haiti. And in Haiti, they have a saying. And the saying goes, you don't learn to swim in the library. You learn to swim in the river. Our students come to campus ready to swim, ready to try to have real impact. And our job as faculty is to create an opportunity for them to have this kind of impact. What that meant at Rice was for us to create, in fact, invent a space and a process and a culture where our students could work on real and relevant problems. In 2008, we had the ribbon cutting of the Oshman Engineering Design Kitchen. What you see here in this picture is a table, a team table. It's one of the key features of the design kitchen. We have 78 tables where the students are assigned a table for the semester or for the year, and it becomes their work environment. And if you imagine team after team after team at tables near each other, and it becomes this wonderful co-working environment where the students help each other and stimulate each of them to do their best work, and every team has their own project. But in addition to tables, we have the tools and the supplies and the processes and the support necessary for students to tackle real and challenging projects. The most important ingredient are the students, those students that are eager to have a real impact. I'm going to talk to you about two different, very specific stories of students who have made real impact. This is Pedro. Pedro is a young man who is confined to a wheelchair. And he has a traditional wheelchair, not a motorized wheelchair, because his family doesn't have a car that could actually transport a motorized wheelchair. And his doctor asked him, what is one of your biggest desires? What are the kinds of things would you like to do? And he said, you know what I would love? I would love to be able to push my own wheelchair. However, he has a muscular and joint disorder that made it impossible for him to grab the wheels of the wheelchair and push them forward. The only motion he could really do with his muscles was to push, but he couldn't retract back by himself, and he could only push in front of himself. So this caused a real challenge. At the same time, his doctor wanted him to continue to exercise as much as he was able to. We assigned this challenge to a freshman design course, a team of students in a freshman design course. And they came up with an okay solution that actually didn't work. And we assigned it to another team, and they came up with an okay solution, but it didn't work. Now, we've learned a lot since we offered this project to freshmen, because now we know this is probably too hard of a problem to give to freshmen. But that was okay, because now we had a couple of groups of students who had worked on this project, but they kept failing. But then there was a group of sophomores, 5 students from 4 different majors, 3 of them engineering majors and 1 an art history major. And they decided that Pedro was going to get his wheelchair. And so they did another redesign. Now, all the while, they're learning technical skills in their courses that they're bringing back to the design kitchen and applying it to this particular problem. So they designed a solution, and it didn't work. And they redesigned it, and it didn't work. And they redesigned it, and it didn't work. Wow, this was hard for me to watch. Really hard. And at the same time, I knew they could do it. And my colleagues knew they could do it. At this point, there were 3 different faculty who were actively mentoring this group of students. And they redesigned it, and it didn't work. And they redesigned it, and it worked. And then Pedro tried it, and it did work. But he could move 1 foot per second. Not fast enough for anyone to be willing to walk with him. So in a sense, it didn't work. They went back to the drawing board, started over completely with an entirely new concept. And it didn't work, and they redesigned it, and then it worked. And then they realized they had to do safety reviews, because we certainly couldn't give a wheelchair without going through the safety reviews. That required some more redesign. So 2 and a bit years later, they got a wheelchair that worked. This wheelchair allows Pedro to push, and then it retracts, and then he pushes again, and he can go at walking speed. He can turn if he just pushes on one side. He can turn. He was racing his sister down the hallway of the hospital. When we gave it to him, it was wonderful. But the most wonderful thing about this was that a month after Pedro got his wheelchair, we learned that he told his doctor, I went by myself to the 7-Eleven, made a purchase, and came home by myself. At 15 years old, it was the first time he was able to get himself somewhere that he needed to get and get himself back. For the students, this proof testing turned them into effective, competent, and confident engineers. This group of 5 students just graduated this past May, and they're going all over our country and doing amazing things, and they can look back at this experience and know that they had real impact. I'm going to talk about another story, a different kind of story. This is the story. It started in 2008 when I visited Malawi, and this wonderful doctor told me that half the babies that are born prematurely die from respiratory distress because they can't breathe. And she also told me that in the developed world, there's something called CPAP, a very gentle method of inflating a baby's lungs and keeping them open so the baby can breathe for the first few days of life until their lungs are ready to take over the complete function. She asked me to assign this as a project in one of my classes, and I did. And this team of students designed the technology that you see being held in Jocelyn's hand. $150 worth of pumps and tubing, and they were able to demonstrate that they got the exact same pressures and flows as the $6,000 to $30,000 system that they have at Texas Children's Hospital. A very long story short. Fast forward 5 years, and this technology is a commercialized product. It's called Pumani. And one of the students during these 5 years, Jocelyn, that I pointed out before, went to Malawi, ran a clinical trial, and was able to demonstrate that with this technology, there was a 40% improvement in survival of the babies with respiratory distress syndrome. 40%. This technology has been scaled up countrywide in Malawi. It got a CE mark a year ago, and it is now a commercial product that is able to be purchased internationally. Think about the impact. I took this picture when Jocelyn and I went with a group of people from the Ministry of Health to implement the technology at one of the district hospitals in Malawi. And the woman here that you see behind the baby came up to us and said, "You don't remember me, but my baby was in the clinical trial. And she's close by, he's close by, I'm gonna go get her, him, I think it was a him, go get him." And brought the baby to see us. So think about the impact. That baby is alive, possibly because of this technology. But there's another impact. Look at Jocelyn. Look at her face, 23 years old, and she was able to look into the face of a baby whose life her work saved. We have been able to take this model of weaving design and invention through the curriculum, along with a design facility to support invention and building technologies, to other universities. This is a picture at Malawi Polytechnic, the same country where we're working with the CPAP device. We've started working with the engineering students there. And these students are starting to identify challenges in their own environment. And this is a picture of them beginning to build a technology that they identified was needed at the hospital next door. These students are going to be able to have real impact. I gave you 2 small stories of the kind of impact that our students are starting to have. I could have picked to any number of stories, probably dozens of stories just from this year. So as you think about that, think about how you can have real impact, how you can encourage others to look around themselves, identify problems, and do something about it. We all have that capacity. And so that is my challenge to you. Have real impact.